How are you, Andrew?
I'm fine. And you?
I'm fine. What is the story today?
Today we are going to talk about nuclear war.
Oh my god, nuclear war. Are there predictions of a new war?
Anytime tensions between nuclear powers are high and geopolitical conditions are volatile, the specter of nuclear war rears its ugly head. After World War II, the world feared a new global conflict could erupt at any moment as the United States and Soviet Union competed for world dominance. The result was the Cold War, a period of distrust, espionage and proxy wars that ended in 1991 with the collapse of the Soviet Union. Fortunately, there have been no nuclear wars since 1945. But we've come frighteningly close on several occasions. In 1983, for example, the world came within a hair's breadth of nuclear war when computer software glitches almost led to an accidental missile launch from NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command, headquarters in Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado Springs. And relations between Russia and NATO remain so strained today that analysts believe another Cold War is imminent, and this time it could involve nukes.
Can nuclear war be accidental?
Many people think nuclear war is inevitable. That if the USA, Russia or China get into a major geopolitical dispute or crisis, it's a sure bet they will use nuclear weapons on each other. But the truth is, the danger of a nuclear war is not so much that one side will intentionally use nukes, but that a military confrontation will get out of hand and escalate into a nuclear exchange by mistake. Accidents, miscommunications and misunderstandings are sadly common in war. Because nuclear weapons are so destructive and powerful, even the slightest error or malfunction can be catastrophic and potentially lead to nuclear war.
Why are relations between Russia and the United States so tense?
It's hard to know exactly what's going on inside the Kremlin, but most geopolitical analysts agree relations between the United States and Russia are pretty bad. So what's causing the chill in the first place? For starters, the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991 meant Russia's global superpower status instantly evaporated. They were forced to transform their economy from a centrally planned and state-controlled system into a free market capitalist one. This was a very painful process, and Russian citizens have long resented the USA for criticizing their economic transition and the large amount of debt the country incurred. Given these resentments, it's not surprising that Russian Vladimir Putin has become assertive and nationalistic, seeking to regain a degree of power and prestige for his country. This has put him at odds with the USA, which has a long history of supporting anti-Russian regimes in Eastern Europe and the Middle East.
Could a nuclear war be limited to just Russia and the USA?
How it's possible, it's incredibly unlikely. The reason is simple. Both Russia and the USA have nuclear-armed allies they'd be bound to protect. The USA has a number of allies in Europe and Asia, who are also nuclear powers. These include Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Belgium, Italy and Turkey, who have American nuclear weapons on their soil under a program known as nuclear sharing. For example, over 200 American B-61 gravity nuclear bombs are stationed in Italy and Turkey. Russia has similar agreements with its allies, including China, Cuba, Iran, Pakistan and Venezuela. Wherever there are nuclear weapons, there's always a risk of an accidental or unauthorized launch. So unfortunately, even a limited nuclear war between the USA and Russia would almost surely quickly escalate into a full-blown nuclear exchange.
How would a nuclear war start between Russia and the USA?
Here are two scenarios that experts most often cite as ways a nuclear war might start between Russia and the USA: a cyber attack or a kinetic physical attack. A cyber attack could disrupt or disable weapons systems and communications networks. For example, a hacker could penetrate and disrupt the American missile defense systems. If that happened, a Russian strike on US missile silos could be executed with little resistance or warning. A kinetic attack could be a conventional military operation that goes wrong, gets out of hand and escalates into an exchange of nuclear weapons. This is a very real possibility given the heightened tensions between Russia and the USA, especially given the fact that both countries maintain a launch-on warning posture. In other words, they keep their nuclear weapons on a high state of readiness and keep their fingers on the button, poised to launch at any moment. When tracking the course of American nuclear bomb development, this path is not about a particular U.S. administration, but the U.S. military itself, regardless of the administration's direction. The development of the B-61 bomb began under Democrat Obama, and continued under Republican Trump. In 2015, the U.S. side confirmed Washington's intention to produce 480 nuclear bombs of this kind, which began being tested in 2017. Early last year, Washington announced the production of the first batch of this weapon, which is the latest and most dangerous nuclear weapon in its arsenal. Hans Christensen, director of the Nuclear Information Program of the Union of American Scientists, confirmed that the production of the B-61-12 bomb was NATO's most important nuclear modernization. The bomb could be carried through an F-35 aircraft. New bombs could be placed on U.S. bases in Europe. On the seriousness of the United States nuclear bomb, it is possible to manufacture multiple sizes, in order to respond to the objectives to be destroyed. For example, Russian experts see the difficulty of destroying Russian bases in Syria through traditional means, unless there is a major Western conflict with Russia. Washington is expected to use a low-yield, B-61-12, warhead on a ballistic missile to achieve the target. A warhead can be used with a certain force to destroy nuclear laboratories under mountains. Thus, Iran, together with Russia and China, will face a real problem with this new weapon. That is, we have a military capability that may be used at certain levels against states and regimes, even against movements and groups, through nuclear strikes of limited scope and impact.
Have you ever wondered how you would react if a nuclear war occurred between the United States and Russia? What is the best place to avoid the consequences of nuclear radiation?
Scientists at Rutgers University in the U.S. state of New Jersey have found that Argentina and Australia in the event of a nuclear war will survive but bear serious consequences. In a study published in Nature Food, experts modeled a theoretical scenario for a nuclear conflict. According to them, dropping atomic bombs on cities and industrial centers would lead to firestorms, and the world's atmosphere would be contaminated by emissions of combustion molecules, resulting in climate change and reduced food supplies on land and in the oceans. Experts predict that, if more than 150 teragrams, more than 165 million tons, of amorphous carbon is released into the atmosphere, grain consumption will decrease by about 90% in 3 to 4 years after the end of the world nuclear war. Maps published by experts show that Australia and Argentina will be able to maintain optimal food intake, the number of calories per person per day, even with the largest amount of amorphous carbon emissions in the atmosphere. New Zealand will also see less impact than other countries, but if this scenario occurs, the region could face an influx of refugees from Asia and other food shortage countries, the article states.
How would a Russian-USA nuclear war end?
Unfortunately, there's no way to know for sure. The only thing we can be certain of is that millions of people will die. Many experts argue that a full-scale nuclear war between Russia and the USA would end with the complete obliteration of both countries. The blasts and fallout from the initial exchange would cause widespread death and destruction in the two superpowers, followed by the slow death from radiation sickness of millions of survivors. Given that a full-scale nuclear war between the USA and Russia would almost surely be mutual suicide, it's inevitable that both sides would lose. It would be the end of civilization as we know it. The specter of nuclear war is always a very real danger. Given current geopolitical conditions, it's perhaps a more likely scenario now than ever before. Consider this. In terms of numbers of nuclear weapons, Russia and the USA are by far the most powerful nuclear powers. If relations between them degrade or break down completely, the result could be a catastrophic nuclear exchange. In order to avoid a nuclear war, it's essential that political and military leaders on both sides strive to keep a lid on their emotions and not let aggressive or nationalistic rhetoric get out of hand.
I've learned a lot from hearing this news and stories. Tomorrow I'll wait for you to hear new information and stories.
I promise you interesting and useful stories and information.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.